Hey everybody, it's Jim here, and today I'd like to talk about modifying or upgrading your guitar. It could be a really fun endeavor. Sometimes it never really ends. You could find yourself swapping pieces out years after you've already had the same instrument. But I'm also going to give you a piece of advice that I would recommend taking into, consideration before you stop modifying your guitars. But to begin with here, what parts are the most important to modify and what should you start focusing on if that's the path you want to go down? Now, before you start doing any modifications to any guitar, there are a few things that you need to address on the instrument to make sure they're in order. Then you can really properly assess what you really might want to change going forward. The first thing I highly recommend is getting the nut looked at. If you have any kind of tuning stability problems or anything like that, or you hear funny little clicking, high-pitched noises, it means your nut's binding. Take it to a good tech if you don't know how to file a nut on your own, and just make sure that that is as good as possible. That is a lifesaver. A lot of people immediately jump to the tuners as the culprit for tuning problems. Very rarely is it the actual tuners that are causing the problems. A lot of the times it's at the nut. Next, you want to make sure that your bridge is set up really well as well. You want to make sure it's properly intonated at a comfortable height for you to play with an action that, makes you want to sit and play the guitar for hours. If you're not comfortable doing any of these things, there are a lot of free resources you can learn how to do these things on via YouTube and just go to the library. I know that sounds crazy, but there's a lot of good books that can explain this stuff to you as well. You want to forego all of that, bring it into a good tech, make sure that your baseline guitar is in perfect working condition before you decide what you want to do to it next. And once you have completed step number one, now we can go to step number two, and that is establishing what do you want to modify and why do you want to modify it. When I got this guitar, and this is a 77 Ex Robato from Japan, I had never played this brand before, brand new, so when I got it, I didn't really know what to expect. Playability and the actual craftsmanship as far as the fretwork, how smooth it was, the nut being cut well, I was blown away. But when I plugged it in, the pickups weren't super high end, but it was to be expected. This is a mid-range instrument. So knowing what I kind of wanted and having so much experience with Lindy Fralin and his pickups, I put in a set of pure PAFs, and while I was in there, I made sure might as well throw in some high-quality CTS pots and a Switchcraft jack. Outside of that, the only other thing I modified on this guitar was the stop tailpiece. This is the stock bridge, and these are the stock tuners. The only reason I modified the tailpiece is I just like having the locking tailpiece, because when you're doing string changes or anything like that, just, it makes it so this thing isn't gonna fall if you make a little sudden movement, or if you get to hold it while you're de-stringing the guitar. You're not going to damage the body or anything like that. And whether that does anything for sustain, I don't know. There's a lot of theory as far as guitar hardware goes. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. I just look at it from a practical perspective. But when it came to the decision of the Lindy Fralin pickups, it was an easy one for me because I know my own rig and what I like out of a pickup. When you hear something on YouTube, the one thing that kind of gets lost in translation here is you could click on a video and hear the most outrageously good demo of any given product, whether it's a guitar, a pedal, or an amp. That doesn't mean if you have the same exact thing at home, it's going to replicate it. There's a lot of factors that go into it. Are the speakers the same? What kind of microphone are you using? Or is it some sort of DI box or a Two Notes captor or something like that that's actually doing it? Maybe it's even a plugin. There's a lot of things to consider. So while YouTube demos can be helpful, just know that you should never bank entirely on your rig sounding exactly the same as somebody else's. So one thing I recommend doing before you swap electronics on an instrument, play the guitar through your main amp at gigging volume. I know that that's not something that you might be able to do all the time. You might live in a small flat. You might also, have family that you're living with. It could be tough. Make the time to do it. And if you can record it and you have a good way that you can record it and you trust yourself to set up the microphone correctly to do it, I would recommend doing that. That way, you're going to be able to hear what your guitar and your rig sounds like, and then you can make an opinion. Maybe I need a little bit more bottom end, and I thought that I would need more high end. No, but through my rig, I need this. It's all personalized, and the only way to do that is to really have an honest appraisal of how it is through what you're actually going to be using it through. And one other piece of advice, if you can afford to do so, regardless of what modifications you do as far as the electronics, pickups, or any of the hardware, keep the original stuff. Put it in a box, leave it in your closet, and don't worry about it. That way, if you decide that you want to part ways with the guitar, put the stock parts back onto it, sell the aftermarket parts separately, or save them for another project. Your guitar will move faster that way because the potential buyer will see it and be like, oh, blank canvas. Now, once in a while, somebody will want to buy a guitar that has all the exact modifications that yours has in it. It's not always the case though. Trust me, I've sold a few guitars in my day. More often than not, people want it in the stock form. And now for what I feel is the most important thing you should not do. I have done this in the past, and I'm sure many of you have also done this in the past. Do not buy parts for a guitar that you have ordered and you do not even have in your possession yet. Get to know the guitar. You might be really surprised and happy with certain things that you might have on paper because you read it on a forum or you watched it on a YouTube video. Somebody says you have to do this. Judge for yourself. You are, at the end of the day, the person that is going to be playing this guitar. You're the one that's going to have the enjoyment of it. Go in with an open mind. Do what I said. Take down. Make sure that you really have a fair appraisal of a baseline of the guitar after it's been set up and put into decent operation before you start tinkering around. But after that, have fun. Have a lot of fun doing it. So that's all I have for you guys today. If you have any other tips for modifications or a favorite modification that you end up on doing on the majority of your guitars, leave them down in the comments down below. Leave a like if you enjoy the content on this channel. It really does help me because it helps other people get joined in because it shows up on their timeline, and I think 6% of the time they might want to click onto it. And again, special thank you to all the members that help support this channel so that we can continue to grow and invest money back in, like all this beautiful lighting. I really like this. It's a nice little mood in here. So happy modding, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take it easy, everybody.